Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to my table. So tonight we bring to you a really interesting discussion between two published authors. One is the author of an anthology. The other one is a novelist who's already brought out two books, and this novel happens to be her third book. The discussion that we have in that we've planned for today is basically a discussion to kind of discuss the pros and cons of writing an anthology vis-a-vis writing a novel. The literary world actually has been abuzz, off late with a lot of anthology collections hitting the market. Is there actually a market for anthologies out there? Or has the market moved on to novels and to promoting authors who are penning full-length novels? That's the discussion that we hope to have tonight. My first guest is the author of an anthology, a heartwarming anthology, if I might say so. The anthology is titled Rainbow Housing Society, and the author is Meha Sharma. Meha, in her anthology, has brought out the tales of I would say a normal housing society, a society that you and I could be living in, which comprises of people from different stratas of life and people who have their own sets of problems and have their own sets of issues. And that's the thing that she has chosen to highlight via her anthology. So on that note, let me please welcome Meha Sharma. Good evening, Meha, and welcome to my table.
Evening. Good evening, Sonal. How are you? It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad. I am so glad. I'm so glad. On that note, I'll just ask you to wait for 2 minutes whilst I introduce the other guest. So my other guest for tonight is, as I said, she's the author of a novel which has recently hit the market, and it's kind of flooded the digital space, selling 250 copies in the first day itself. So the author is Anita Padanatil, and she has penned a beautiful novel called Girl in a Million. Now, Girl in a Million is the story of friends. It's the story that we might have lived through, hopefully not with the tragedy, the tragic undertone that it carries, but it's the story of friends. It's the story of warm relationships formed when people are in, a boarding school or a hostel, and thereafter they move on in life and go their different ways, and they find each other, and in that is the catharsis that they get. So that is what the underlying tone of the novel is. On that note, let me please welcome Anita. Good evening, Anita.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, Anita.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here, and good to see you, Neha.
I hope a really good discussion tonight on the pros and cons of novel writing vis-a-vis anthology writing.
We'll try our best.
I am sure with your experience, I am definitely sure that we'll be able to, give others quite a few inputs so that they can be kind of guided in their journey towards writing something. So I will first like to start with Meha. Meha, let's talk about your book. So I have it right here, Rainbow Housing Society. Yeah. And okay. So Rainbow Housing, that is really sweet. So Rainbow Housing Society, as I mentioned in my introduction, Meha, what I like best about your book is that it's very warm. One thing. The second thing which I absolutely loved about your book is that it is the story of human relationships all around us. And within each story is a very pertinent question that you have raised. It's been subtly woven into the fabric of the story. And yet, when I read the book, it made me sit back and it made me think, oh yeah, what she's saying is right. This is something we neglect. This is something we don't do. This is something we should think about. So that's the kind of emotion your book evoked in me when I read it. Was that a conscious decision to write it in that manner, or did it just come about naturally?
So it was not a conscious decision per se. But yes, these were issues I feel strongly about. So when I started writing, I think it happened inevitably. They kind of seeped in the book or in the stories that I was penning at that point of time. Okay. And I would say that the stories are, a lot of people think that the stories are real, but I would say that the stories are a figment of my imagination, but I would say that the issues are very real.
So they're basically an imagined reality rooted in the realism of day-to-day life.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and these are certain issues which I feel strongly about. As if you, since you've read the book, you'll be able to know that I've spoken about LGBTQ rights.
Right.
I've spoken about infertility and parents neglecting a child. Even that was a very short piece of fiction, but I somehow wanted to convey a message. So it was not a conscious decision per se, but yes, since I think I feel strongly about these issues, and I wanted my writing to as I've constantly mentioned in my book, that I wanted these stories to inspire people or to make people think, because I think that's what is the basic.
It made me think. Made me think about a lot of things actually. Right. So because you've raised a lot of issues, and all of them are very pertinent to mundane day-to-day affairs. Right. So that's what I really like. You know, it's a story happening with my next door neighbor probably, but something that I am not cognizant of. Right. So that's what your book did for me. Right. So why did you decide to write this in an anthology form? Why didn't you choose, say, a few characters living together within a household, say a joint family or something like that, and bring out these issues in a novel via those?
So when I started writing this book, actually I had already been writing short stories for a while. I'd been writing for various forums for 7-8 years. So what I wanted to do was I just wanted to test new waters, and I wanted to see whether I would be able to come up with a novella or something which might, help me grow as a writer. Right. So that was my basic intent behind penning short stories. And why I chose an anthology, like I said, at that point, I did not think that, first of all, that it will be published eventually, to be honest.
Oh my God.
Secondly, when I was writing these stories, I had pictured these stories as a sort of a novella. But when I started penning these stories, somehow they became independent short stories. Though there is an underlying inherent theme in all the stories, which runs through all the stories.
Yes.
But you can also read them independently. So somehow when I started penning these stories, it so happened, though when I started writing, I had pictured and imagined that I would probably write a novella with probably a same set of characters. But I think my narrator was someone who was there throughout, but the characters kept changing because of the setting I chose.
Okay. So on that note, Neha, why go with the narrator that you chose? I'm very, very curious about that, because the narrator here could have been anybody, but you chose a very unusual narrator. So I don't know, those who have not read the story, let me not let the cat out of the bag. Why did you go with that narrator?
I wanted to write about a housing society because, I had recently actually moved to a housing society. And usually we stay in cantonment, so it was a very novel experience for me. And society throbbing with people from various walks of life. So I think unwittingly, this is where the germ came into my mind, that you can do something with it, or you can bring out a plethora of stories with various issues. But I thought about different things happen behind the doors. But I wondered, who would be able to actually go and see what's happening? Because people wear masks and nobody's, wanting to share what is happening with them.
So you needed somebody who could actually peek into the house.
Yeah. So I needed somebody who could peek into the houses and who could go on doing it without being noticed. So that's when
is your next book going to be about some peeping Tom now?
I don't know.
Some peeping Tom going and peeking into some people's houses.
I don't know. I think we, as writers, we need to be really curious, and I think we also tend to overhear people's conversations, and we do it shamelessly. And I think that's one thing about which we should not be ashamed of it. We should do it if we want to come up with different stories. So that's one thing I feel that it can
I think
help
as writers, more than anything, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but as writers, I think we're a very shameless lot. We think it's a birthright. We think it's a birthright to, write about somebody, eavesdrop on conversations.
Yeah.
Kind of, give a two-piece to a discussion, just so that the discussion becomes more lively and we can pick some material from there. So we are a pretty shameless lot when it comes from dredging up other people's lives.
Yeah.
So
and actually, stories
sorry.
come about from these, like you spoke about
Experience. I
eavesdropping. So,
absolutely agree.
so actually, there was this novel I was reading a couple of years back, and behind the novel, the author had written how the story, the basic plot came into being. So it was really intriguing to read that the plot came about when she was actually sitting in a restaurant. She was having lunch with her friend, and she actually overheard two women talking on the next
Okay.
table, and that's where that idea came about. That okay, they were talking that okay, that particular woman got divorced, and now she has to fight for her kids' custody. So that's how that particular author started thinking on those lines. That what
Okay,
if
so on
she
that
runs
note, what
away
I'm
with
going to
it?
tell my audience here is that if you want to be a good writer, please eavesdrop. Go to
Yes.
restaurants, eat
Absolutely.
food, whatever. Pay your
I
bills, listen to
suggest
conversations.
But do it
That's where you
furtively.
get your masala material from.
I
But
don't think we should scare away our close, near and dear relatives and family and friends. They will,
absolutely.
Right.
as it
Yeah,
is,
on
we
that
have
note,
the keeping
on
They
the
will
that
not
distance,
take
note,
us
staying with
to
home.
Anita,
restaurants. They'll stop taking us to restaurants.
yeah.
We'll have to eat
I
alone.
said there is that
True.
risk. So, Anita, I'm going to bring you in on that note. And your experience in writing this novel must have been very different from Meha's experience in penning down an anthology of short stories, right? So, it has always been my belief that as a novelist, you need to put certain aspects of yourself into the book. They may not be the characters, they may not be the situations, but a part of your soul gets transferred into the characters that you're creating. You have to live them in order to translate your words and feelings into a compendium. Now, how difficult was it for you to do that? Because see, to do that you need to be Anita the novelist, and you have to dissociate yourself from your family or your children for a while just so you could think and put yourself into that mode to write. How difficult was it to
Uh,
pen this?
with me, dissociating was a very difficult thing to do, practically, because you are a homemaker. So you have your cooking, you have your cleaning, you have
Yeah.
all the things associated with a home.
All the
So you
perks,
can't, of
basically.
course, perks, whether little perks that brighten
Yeah.
up your lives. So you can't dissociate yourself basically from anything. And if you get that spark, whether it is early in the morning or any time of the day, you need to actually set a time and go and just work like a maniac and get it,
That's
finish
your zone,
finish it up.
basically. You need that.
Exactly, you need that. So the corner was already there. I had set up a corner, but getting to the corner was the toughest part. It was like the tortoise, or the snail moving towards that corner. The ideas are all there inside your head, but then
Right.
let it out was very difficult. And basically, my journey has been unplanned. This was where I am right now has never been. I have never actually thought of being a writer, being a novelist. So all the questions, the serious questions that you have for me, I think I would answer them in simple layman's terms, as a layman, because thinking of it from a very serious point of view, I guess you might get a little, worked up or whatever.
That's all right. No problem at all. We are interested in your perspective, your journey, your evolution as a writer, because there are a lot of our friends out there who've just begun this journey. It's baby steps for them. So right now they're at the stage they're writing 500-word flash fiction. They're writing 1,000 to maximum attempting 3,000-word flash fiction.
Correct.
Now transitioning from 500-word to 3,000 is a task, because the writing suddenly becomes more descriptive. From 3,000 to 5,000 is another task. But once I think you've done 5,000, then you take off, because after that you have the idea. In order to write a good 5,000-word piece, you got to do 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 words and then edit it out. So was that your journey too? Like when you wrote Girl in a Million?
Like I said, my journey was totally, it is like an off the cuff kind of a thing. It was not a regular writer, writing kind of a thing. So I started with small bits, exploring all by myself. I had this idea that, I should while away my time doing some writing, because I was in this transition period, where I was, literally, in a different phase of mind. And this actually helped me, work things out. So whenever I had some time and space, nobody knew that I was writing. In fact, Yeah, in fact, this was around 4 to 5 years ago. No one knew I was doing the writing, and I never confided to anybody because I felt it's like a secret part of me that, it's my own little secret. I was holding on to it, and I had fun with it. It's like my baby and me. I've never handled a baby before, and she grows up, and it's like that. So it was a very fun, part of me that I was, secretly, what do you say, taking care of, and then. I dissociated slowly when it started getting to me. I started dissociating with all the, me, I'm not very comfortable with the camera and all, the video and stuff. So I started dissociating with a lot of WhatsApp groups that we had. I mean, a lot of WhatsApp groups, and that irked a lot of, sensibilities, because I didn't confide, the reason behind my,
absence.
Exiting. And frankly, I needed the time, to think about what I was doing, whether it was going to, work, or whether it was the right thing to do. I didn't know anything. I had no one to, check with.
A writer is plagued by self-doubt the worst, I think.
Seriously, I had everything all around my head. I could see them. It was like that Tare Zameen Par child who has all his things all around him. I could see them. It was like that.
Like little Tweety birds floating around,
Oh, yes.
This is my character. Let me pluck this one and write about this one. Okay. All right.
And then I started with a few, short stories. But my short stories were all around the 3,000 to 5,000 word limits. I surfed the net for quite a while, and that was my only guide, my only tool, because I was not part of any writing group, and even now I'm only part of Artoon Zen, the writers group. So no one to discuss. I took the call all by myself. So there were people telling the blogs that advised, write 500 words every day, 1,000 words every day, be dedicated. I mean, none of that worked. Finally, I ended up doing it my own way, and it was in 2018 that I had actually 2 manuscripts ready.
Oh, really? That far back?
So both the manuscripts were ready, and one was floating around. In the sense, Girl in a Million was floating around, and the second one was picked up, which is the one that you have mentioned, the science fiction, Vast Thought Wave and the Daredevil. Okay, so this was picked up by the publisher, and he wanted me to do an additional, work, research, and write on the biography of the ruler of Sharjah.
Okay.
The best part was we hadn't met. This publisher hadn't met me. We had just spoken over the phone, and he just suggested, please work on this. You do the research and things like that. It was a very weird story. I mean, I don't think people would actually believe it when now come to think of it. But then within the space of 2 months, I found myself, in the Sharjah Book Fair. I had never been there. I mean, for all the 15 years that I've been in the UAE, I've never been to that part of town. And suddenly I end up there with 2 books. I wanted to write a book, but then I ended up with 2 books.
It must have felt incredible, Suddenly there. I mean, you got both hands full.
I was like a zombie. Literally, I was numb. I was numb. I was just smiling for the sake of smiling, but my inside, I was a mass of nerves. You had these, photographs and people and the crowd all looking at you, and I just wanted to shrink and hide in a corner. That's me, right?
Oh God.
So yeah, that happened, and I thank God for it. It was an incredible.
So you're one of those people, Anita. You're one of those people whom we can coin a catchphrase for suddenly famous.
I guess, but I prefer to be the same old Anita. I used to be called Anita P. Nobody knew my surname or the extent to which it was coined, and now they all call me. So initially my friends said, is that you? Is that your real name? Because I used to call myself Anita P. That's it. So nobody knew my name, the full name. And then so the writing part happened over a period of time. I worked on it. So basically I would like to tell everyone, all the aspiring, my friends, all of you here from Room 9 and all of you viewers, that don't expect anything, don't be aggressive. Be patient with yourself. be patient with the work that you have created. When I talk about it, I get goosebumps, because that's how you must like your work. That's how you must love your work, and that's how you must invest yourself in whatever you do. So even if it is something that you have come over by accident, if you don't invest your heart and soul in it, like you said,
embrace it wholeheartedly.
And that's when it'll if it's meant to work, it'll work. It'll definitely work. But then you have to be patient.
Yeah,
that is
thank
the
you
thing.
so much for saying that. We have a question from Bhaskar Mukherjee, again, an incredibly talented writer. I'm reading his book, It Happens, and I'm absolutely loving it right now. So his question he's asked both of you, what's more important in a short story, the plot or the character conflict? So Meha, would you like to take this first? Then we can come to Anita.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think in a short story, you can both plot or you cannot really say that a plot or is important or a character conflict is important, because in a short story, since the difference between a short story and a novel is that the words are lesser, so you can actually you have to take into account both the plot as well as the character conflict. Or you can even just concentrate on the character conflict. You can just talk about a person's mental state of mind and you can finish writing a short story.
Okay, let's break this question up into a word limit. Suppose it's a 500-word story, short story, flash fiction, 500 words. Now, in that, is the plot more does the plot need to be stronger, or the character conflict needs to be stronger? Because the story needs to complete its arc even in the 500 words, right? So the beginning, the conflict, the climax, and the denouement, it all needs to come. So what is more important in a 500-word story, according to you?
Again, I would say it depends on what sort of a story you are writing. If your story is plot-centric, then of course you can go with concentrating on the plot per se. But if you're talking about a character and if you're focusing on the character, the dark shades of a character or whatever, then you can absolutely concentrate on the character conflict. But the biggest thing if you're writing a flash fiction is that the end has to really get the readers. So I think that's the most important part, because the lesser number of words, it's not easy to write. People believe that 100-word stories and 500-word stories are easier to write. They're easier to pen. But I mean, I would like to mention the definition which Edgar Allan Poe had given for a short story, which I think very succinctly he had brought about. So he basically, I'll try and paraphrase it. I don't remember exactly what his words were, but he had described a short story as that it is a dramatic narrative which is intended to be read in a single sitting, but at the same time, it is designed to produce a singular effect on the reader. That's how Edgar Allan Poe had defined a short story. So I think if you think about the definition, I think that just covers it, and that
covers everything. Okay.
Yeah,
Anita,
it sums it up. Sums it up.
What about you, Anita? What would be your answer to this?
I always look at it the unconventional way. I don't go by rules. And I don't think, with all due respects to all the writers and whatever rules have been set in, I feel that whatever line you start with and whatever line you end with, whatever it is between it, the lines that you wish to convey, if it touches the heart of the readers, words don't matter. It's only the intent. So if they like it, I mean, if there is a genre, it's a thriller or it's a horror-based story or theme. If you manage to convey what you have created, whether be the character or the plot or the theme, if it conveys the whole thing to the reader or the viewer, I mean, that's all that matters.
Okay. Okay. Let me kind of cap this discussion on this particular question for the viewers, of course. Now, suppose if you're considering a story which is 500 words. I think what you guys are trying to say is that whatever aspect we look into to write that 500 words, we need to stick to one thing. So if we have picked a plot, now a 500-word story could also just be a conversation between two people, and therein it could be the conversation in itself could bring out the plot. So we need to focus more on the way the story is going. If it happens to be a lengthier story, I always feel that there is no scope for any superfluous language in a flash fiction. Till about, I would say, 2,000 words, there is hardly any scope to put in metaphors or overly poetic language or even lengthen your descriptions. That only happens once you shift from 3,000 to say 5,000 words. Then only you can describe, how the person in a 500 word story, a person will walk into a room. In a 1,500 word story, the person will walk into a room and notice something in the room, possibly that the light wasn't, the light of the room was dim. In a 3,000 word story, in the dim light, he's able to see something. So he can possibly see, okay, there was a lamp by the bedstand, the bed wasn't made, or, the pale light of the sun was filtering in, or whatever. Now, in a 5,000 to 7,000 word story, this description can be lengthened into a paragraph so that the reader is put into the setting. So that has been my experience, whatever I've garnered from different, people that I've met, different writers. Would you guys agree to that? This thing?
Yes, I would absolutely agree to it, because in a flash fiction, there is hardly any scope for exposition, which is there if you are writing a bigger piece of writing, or if you're writing a novel or novella. So in a flash fiction, you cannot describe a character in detail. You cannot describe the setting at length. So basically, you have to, like he mentioned in the question, that you have to focus on the plot, because it has to follow the arc, as you mentioned. But you can also, like Anita was mentioning, in writing, there's no one size fit all. If you read stories by various, the prominent short story writers, you will realize that even they didn't follow a yardstick that this is how we should be writing. And there are certain stories which are really famous, which are read, and we read it even now. And those stories may not have followed a particular format. So again, as Anita mentioned, I would like to agree with her that it's not one size fit all when it comes to writing. So I think the person who's writing, he needs to know what they're leading up to, basically what he wants to convey, whether he wants the reader to be, feel all warm, after reading the story. If you want to bring out the
undercurrent emotion is running through the story,
you want to bring,
and how that will come about and make the reader feel in the end. The last question. On that note, Shelley has a question. So she's asking how important is the ending, both in a novel and a short story. Of course, we know that the ending in a short story, the ending needs to be more impactful. Why? Because we've just led up to something. The story has climaxed at some point, and it is the ending which actually, as a reader, we carry away with us. Now, when it comes to a novel, how important is the ending, Anita? Or is it the conflict and climax which are more important?
It depends. Again, it depends on the kind of narrative that you have been working on. If there is, it's a crime thriller, for example, you already know how it is going to lead up to, unless the suspense is, killing you. It is pulled and, extended towards the end. But if it's going to be a story like Girl in a Million, there are so many endings all over, bits and pieces. So there is nothing. Possibilities, yes. In fact, you can even go for a prequel or a sequel, come to think of it. So just about the idea. So there is, like you say, it all works according to the kind of manuscript that you're working on. And initially, I don't think unless you're that practical and logical, that you will have the blueprint of your work ready. An extremely creative person would keep working on and adding on and, reworking and adding characters. And it just goes on until you realize you have to stop kind of a thing.
Stop at some point. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's always like that. with me, at least, it's like that.
So on that note, tell me, Anita, how did the idea for Girl in a Million come about? Have you drawn upon any kind of personal experiences here, or something that you possibly, or like an imagined reality? Did you draw upon an imagined reality here, put in some instances, snatches of conversations you heard, and kind of drew upon those?
It is all of those, Sonal, Meha. It is all of those bits and pieces of me as well. And of course, not too much. The fiction is, basically the central part. But then there are so many instances in the book that a lot of friends of mine, they have personally reached out to me and said that they can relate to it, exactly like what you have mentioned in your review, Sonal. So there are so many instances that, in our past, in the 80s, life in the 80s, when you were in a school, so many small things that you can all relate to. So those
there's
things,
a feeling of deja vu when you read. You kind of, there's this feeling of deja vu. Oh gosh, this happened with me. I never stopped to think about it, but it did happen with me. So that,
those things just creep up, and it just finds its way, threads its way into your tapestry or whatever you're working on. So that's how it worked out. There was no, particular formulation or plan or anything. I just kept working on it, writing whenever the need came on. Just stop whatever I do, just write. And then towards the end, when I felt that it's, kind of, I
where
think
you
we
wanted
need to
it
make
to
a
be.
stop. Yeah, then that is when
Right.
you go and, reread it and take away all the superfluous stuff.
You've mentioned, Anita, in our sessions, in our interaction, I've heard you mention that the foremost quality that a writer, no, the foremost quality that an author needs to have is patience. Would you care to elaborate on that? Why
yes,
does
definitely.
author needs to be patient?
Definitely. Especially all of us are, into writing. We are very passionate about it. That is, it is in our blood right now, right? So whether it be 500 or 300 or whatever number of words, the words don't matter. It is an intent.
वो दिल से निकलता है आजकल types.
Exactly. So especially when you need, when you have this feeling in you that you need to have a book, of your work coming out. I mean, it doesn't happen like, just write immediately, right? You need to wait for it. And you need to cultivate that kind of, mentality that, things might not happen, things could happen, and things will happen. Anything can happen. It is not in your control. So when you approach publishers, you might face a lot of rejections, and some rejections are very nicely quoted, sugar coated. Yeah, I have received them all. Some are, they maintain silence. There are some who send you very nice mails saying, we can associate with you on a future basis. So you get the drift of it, but then don't take it in a wrong way. I mean, it is all a continuous process. You are also learning, and something might work out in the end. So patience is something you need to cultivate. You can't, get all worked up and, it brings you down. Your energy level comes down. Why go into that?
How would you maintain your motivation in the face of such a situation? Would you just hunker down and write? I mean, the book is already out there. It's already gone to the publishers. There's nothing you can do to change anything in it right now.
Correct.
And the weight is killing you. Like, not everybody is as patient as you look to me, actually. So the weight is killing you. What would you suggest to those people? Should they work on the next project?
Why not? Why not? you should do it. I mean, you can't just, if you keep thinking about whatever you have sent and why is the reply not coming, why are we not getting a reply? I mean, it's going to pull you down. We're all creative people, and the sense of non-fulfillment, it hits you hard.
It's demotivating, right?
So just switch your mind. So do something else. You don't want to write, listen to music, or go for a walk, or watch a movie, or speak to your throw that technical stuff gadget that you have with you, throw it away, and speak to your people.
Okay.
That is needed. I mean, we are all in a phase where we are so reliant on technology. I mean, it's not bad. It is not bad. But it is not very good either. I mean,
very good either. We need
to
human values that a lot of things in order to find ourselves right now.
Exactly.
The situation is such,
we have forgotten how to speak to each other. That's come down to such a sorry state of affairs. I mean, we need to bring all that back.
Yeah, and Meha mentioned, right, that speaking is how you get to know most of your stories. speaking, that's where the stories come from. So, Meha, what was your experience like in publishing? I would like to understand this question about the publishing experience, and, did you approach an agency first? Did you ever think about approaching a literary agent, Meha? Or did you just pitch your book to publishers?
Yeah, so generally, I think the process works how it is mentioned in this particular question, that when your manuscript is ready, you approach a literary agent, and if he likes your work, he presents your work to different publishers out there. And if somebody is interested in your work, he'll back you, and that's how the process starts. But for me, when I had completed my manuscript, I was already part of Artoon Zin, and I just realized that they had come up with their own publishing house. So I thought that why not try and send my manuscript, because I was not very sure at that point of time that I just sent it to them because I was already associated with them. So I felt more comfortable also because since I was already writing for their platform, that's where the importance of writing platform.
There's a level of comfort you have with the public. I think that's very important because he is ultimately going to translate your vision into a reality. So that comfort is most important.
So there was less repetition at my end when I submitted my manuscript, and I just submitted and I forgot about it. And I think after a week or 10 days, they got back to me and they showed interest in the book. So
you forgot about it for 10 days, Meha. You're incredibly patient then. Anita, she is the embodiment of patience.
She knows the secret. You already know it.
I swear. Okay. So,
so for me, it was,
it took off from there basically.
I took off from there. So for me, it was fairly easy, I would say, being a first-time author. So I didn't have to, I mean, eventually I would have probably ventured into exploring other options, literary agents and other things. But since it worked out with them, I did not have to go through.
For you, basically.
For me,
Anita, was it that way for you also? Or did you pitch to literary agents as well in the UAE?
I did. I don't remember what I did, how many mails I've sent. I've not kept track of them. But yeah, there have been quite a few. But Girl of a Million literally took 3 years, to come to fruition.
No wonder is your virtue. So no wonder.
Yeah, actually, there were 2 other offers waiting, But then our wonderful friend COVID turned up, and they kept quiet about it. And Room 9 approached me. I had just been sent an invite by a common friend to get into the writers group, and then I was just that was my first time into a writers group, and it was fun reading you all interacting and all the fun times that you had, your Atra and all that. It was fun reading through all that. And then
dear God, Atra was not fun for us.
I can imagine.
It was a brutal free for all. But yes, Atra is one of those competitions where you can send it a story and you can get scathing reviews from it for that particular story. And after that, the kind of progress that you see in yourself.
Exactly.
Because then you get used to those scathing reviews, you get used to getting that brick back, and everybody out there is, just waiting to kind of stab you and dissect and bisect your story. So that really helps. So
how many
edition helps?
I think Atra has taught us to do edits and re-edits n number of times. Now we can go on doing it endlessly. So I think that's something really important.
When I did my first Atra, after I sent my story, into the room, and I was still, it was up on the website. It hadn't been shared into the writers' room as yet. And I remember sending, that was my first Atra. I was relatively new to the platform. So I remember telling somebody, I wasn't this nervous about my class 10th results also. But this is like, boards were a cakewalk compared to Atra. But then, yes, Atra did teach me a lot. It taught me how to do things better. So, yeah, Anita, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, what was I saying? I completely forgot. I was busy listening to you guys. So I think I got an offer. I was approached by Room 9, and I was just wondering, should I not? Because the other 2 publishers were also in the line. And then I decided to take a call because I was so carried away by the vivacity in the group that I felt let me try it out. And basically it was my dream to get into the Indian market, and it helped. But then again, like I said, it was picked up last March. If you remember, the announcement was made sometime in April,
and
May.
It was Koteshwari earlier. Then it became Girl of a Million. Right?
Yes, it was actually Mitru's idea to have a name that would have instant.
Would have more resonance with worldwide people, right?
Yeah, because Koteshwari has a regional flavor to it. So the viewpoint might be altered. So that was his idea, and of course, the cover was his idea. Beautiful cover. He just came out with a mind-blowing cover. So all those things happened towards the end of 2020. In fact, around 8 to 9 months, there was no activity because of So a year just went by like that. Almost a year went by. So again, I had to be patient. So
oh dear.
Yeah. So it is fine. It is all good now, right now. I'm happy.
Okay, Shweta has a question for the both of you. She's saying, at what point did you say to yourself that I'm done with this and now I'm ready to share the manuscript? How did you come to that particular decision? Because a book is a manuscript is your baby. We don't just give our babies away, do we? We don't let them get adopted. We rear them. So how is it? What is that feeling like? How do you decide?
It is a very scary prospect, frankly speaking, because like you say, you're sending a baby out into the big bad world, the wide world. You don't know anything about copyright. You don't know anything, you know. I was basically that. I was a loner, just a single person trying to do things, you know, trying to make a mark in my world. And so when my first book came, it was a shocker. People you know, they couldn't believe that I could write. I mean, I did write. How do I convince people that I write? So basically, initially, I mean, if you do a little bit of research, publishers normally, if you get into their you know, sites and all that, all they ask you is for maybe 2 or 3 chapters, and you don't have to send the initial manuscript.
3 chapters, a synopsis, and an author bio, an introduction. I think that's
there are variations. I mean, variations to this altogether, or maybe a bits of it. And so you do it accordingly. You tailor make your mail, your you know,
absolutely. To each publisher, it needs to be customized. It can't be just a one copy paste thing.
Correct. So and then, you know, it just goes all over, and you, after a point of time, you are like, what, when, where, how, you know, it's like that. And then you might get certain replies from certain areas that state that, you know, we need to read through your manuscript. You're very interested. Of course, you're worried, but you can't, you know, do anything about it. You send it, you know, blind faith. And then
I know a lot of this industry works on blind faith.
If it's meant to click, it will click. That's all I can say. But your work should be, you know, top class. I mean, you should be.
It needs to have a different flavor. It needs to have a different flavor. And then, of course, I think reading your book, one thing I realized was that language is your forte. So you're not just a grammar I'm talking about here, but the kind of vocabulary you use, the kind of language you have written. So that's your forte. So you, as a writer, I think, feel that language is really, really important when it comes to writing a novel.
Extremely. Okay. It is very necessary. I mean, you can't write, you know, I don't know. I feel there should be a certain standard. Not that you have to pepper it with tough words, but then certain times it is necessary, because it adds to the value and understanding of the idea that you're trying to convey. And of course, the work that you do, when you send it to someone, it should not be shoddy. Of course, it should be edited. I mean, 100% foolproof, you know, perfect.
Manuscript should go out.
Yeah, without a blemish. So that is how you send it, or you keep it ready so that when the call comes, send it.
You can send it immediately, right? So Meha, you had some editorial experience. Did that help you when you started editing your manuscript?
It did help me, but again, I would like to say that even if you have any editorial experience, or even if you are good at editing, I cannot begin to emphasize the importance of a professional editor. So despite that, Room 9 had a very efficient editor, and Husna, she did a wonderful job with my book. So because there are certain things which can escape your eyes, and which there might be a certain word which may not be right. It seems right to you, but it might have a better alternate word. And it's just not about correcting your botched up grammar or your botched up, punctuation. It's more about the structuring. Because I remember when my book was being edited, we even had conversations about that. This narrative is good, but there are less number of dialogues. So it would be better if you make it more conversational.
Right.
Yes, you make it more conversational. They make it more show and tell, that thing also. Let
me ask you, Meha, like in a novel, we understand that in a novel, language is extremely important, because once the beginning has sucked the reader in, the author needs to hold the person's interest throughout, and that can only come if the language is good and the tone is maintained. How important is this kind of language when it comes to an anthology of short stories? Because each story is so different. Even if there's an undertone connecting them, each story is different. Each story could also be a different genre. So how important is language in such a case?
Language is absolutely important, but talking about the tone, if you are writing a potpourri of stories, each belonging to a different genre, then I don't think it's very easy to maintain a similar mood throughout. It's not possible. It's not plausible at all. But coming to my book, since there was an underlying theme, there was an inherent theme running through all the stories. So I felt while writing also, because I wrote it at the same time. It was not that I wrote one story today and one story, say, 4 months from now. I wrote it one after the other. There was not much spacing between when I wrote the first story and when I wrote the second or third story. So having a theme sort of worked well for me. It might be different for different people, because as you know, people are sort of compiling their stories and bringing it in the form of short story anthology, and even they are doing well. Even they are doing well, and it gives the reader a different, a mix of
different flavor,
a variety of stories, and you enjoy doing that. There's a story which cockles your heart. Then in the same anthology, you have a story which is a thriller. So it's a story which is horror based.
So basically, the book is kind of appealing to all the emotions that you possess. So that you find a connect in one story or the other, you kind of find a connect. Now, on that note, let me ask you, as a writer, I would say when we join writing groups, okay, and this is a question I'm going to ask specifically to Anita, because she's written a novel. With respect to a novel, Anita, do you think it is important that a writer be kind of, introduced to or be kind of cognizant of different kinds of genres? Why I'm asking this, I'll give you the reason also why. See, when we are on different writing platforms, we try to pen stories in different genres, right? So like, for example, I think I suck at horror. I could never write a horror story because I'm primarily very used to writing humor. So once I wrote a horror story, and I can say I'm pretty proud of it till date. Why? Because not because it had sterling horror, but because it was horrible. It was that horrible. And after that, I mean, I've never had the guts to write something like that. But suppose in a novel, there is a scene which demands horror, and you haven't written something like that. How do you go about it? How do you incorporate?
You have to, you can't take the easy way out. Obviously, you have to write it. If it is necessary, you have to write it. Apply your mind and, work around it the best way possible. And then, later on you can reread it.
At this point, does it help to read some horror stories penned by other people or do some online research? Would that help in such a scenario?
I think you have to do it instinctively. Shouldn't, I mean, that is what I feel. I mean, it should come from you. I mean, during the time I write, I normally never read any books or any kind of stories, because I feel that might influence whatever I'm planning. Or you never know, something might creep in, the language or the mood, or something could creep in. I mean, that is my opinion. So I basically feel that if you have an idea that you're not strong, that is not your strong point, then why don't you try avoid it or try and work around it? I mean, there are only two ways about it.
Yeah, you are a writer. I mean, so
you can't get into it and make a hash out of it. I might as well do a good job of it, or just avoid it and get into some other situation.
Okay, I have a question now for the both of you. Nowadays, gone is the time when writers and authors used to be writers. They would be recognized for the quality of work that they did. Right now, it's more about popularizing yourself out there, and unfortunately, mostly on the digital media. You need to be seen. In order to be recognized, you need to be seen in order to be taken seriously. I am sorry to use this phrase, but this is how it's become, If you're not visible out there, then you're not taken seriously. So how to go about this? I mean, see, for a person who's a back body, a kind of homebody, like you said you are, Anita, does one engage a PR agency? You believe in your book now. It's out there, it's selling. Do you engage a PR agency? Or how do you go about advertising yourself and your book? What can you do?
First of all, a small correction. I'm not just a homebody. There are a multitude of things that I do, but taking care of the home is, part of our lives.
Yeah,
so you can't just avoid that. You're at home, you have to do things you normally do. I don't know about PR agencies. I've never thought about them. And just, in fact, the penny just dropped recently, because my husband is from the advertising agency. So all his friends are writers. All his friends are writers. Can you believe it? And I had never put a thought towards that side, you know, that my God, I'm writing, who am I, what am I? I'm a nobody. Of course, I mean, when you start out, you know, you're not recognized. You're just trying something for the heck of it, and you know, if it works along, you just go along the flow.
Right. Yeah.
So those things, you know, never actually crossed my mind. In fact, I had put in a post about this graffiti artist, amazing guy called Banksy.
Right.
I don't know if you have heard of him. The guy
I saw
has
your post on
thrived,
FB. Yeah.
the guy has thrived on anonymity. Okay, nobody has seen him, but his works are like cult. They have achieved cult status. So I personally believe in things like that because I'm happier that way. But having said that, today's day and age, yes, a certain amount of you know, familiarity in the media, that is very necessary. So if you are going to be very aggressive about it, we've heard about stories about CB having you know, plotted its marketing strategy.
There isn't one session which I've done in which CB hasn't cropped up. I mean, I should be getting a royalty for promoting him, it seems.
So, you know, if you're that good, I mean, you have that kind of a backup and that kind of a thinking. Yes, fortunately, I mean, it'll help. It has helped him.
He's very good at marketing his stuff. He's excellent in marketing his stuff, I think.
So I mean, we should all pray for that magic formula, you know, that magic formula, that magic wand that will help us, you know, in getting our words out there.
Coming to you with this discussion now, how important do you think is advertising and being in the digital space? How important is it putting yourself out there in order for your book to do well?
Yeah, like we were talking the other day, I think it's really difficult for a writer to be a recluse nowadays. I mean, like I was mentioning you the other day, if you are a Rowling or a Rushdie, then you can do that. But other than that, it's the need of the hour if you are a writer, a new writer, I would say, someone who's not established, that you need to put yourself out there. But at the same time, I would also say that I'm also a little similar to Anita. Even I feel very uncomfortable talking about my book, to the extent that people tell me that, why don't you talk about your book? Okay. And there are people who tell me that, okay, we didn't know you had a book. We never saw you talking about it. So even I am pretty uncomfortable about talking my book because maybe I don't, I'm not a loner per se, or I'm not an introvert, so to say, but still there on social media, but I do not like to talk about my personal life or talk about my achievements or see I've written a book, things like that. But over a period of time, I have come to realize that even if you are a little, you have discomfort doing that, but visibility is something which will certainly.
I'll cut you short there with a thought. What I feel is that as a writer, you need to have two distinct personalities. One is the personality which you have for yourself. Like Anita also mentioned, you know, that you need to be who you are. You are your own person. Right. And then there's the face that you show some. Yeah, I don't want to use that phrase, but you've got to be two-faced. I mean, but in the nicest possible manner. So you are your own person, and yet you are another person when it comes to the masses, to those who are reading your book or, you know, being inspired by you. So now, in order to bring that person out, your alter ego out, we have to take, these are the implements, the tools that we need to employ, basically. Unfortunately, social media is one of those. Now, when it comes to marketing, or rather, I would say, Neha, you are on different social media platforms. I see you on Facebook, I see you on Insta and Twitter. Right. I feel that literature has more or less moved out of Facebook now. Everything is on Twitter nowadays. Would you agree to this? So, yes, if you had to promote your book, which platform would you choose? If you had to choose one platform.
I don't know about Twitter, but I am active on Facebook and Instagram, and I do promote my book there. And I am connected to a lot of people. And in fact, when my book came out, I was not pretty sure that people would read it. But I think the number of people who have read it is because I was
you were active
there on these writing platforms. And most importantly, which I would like to tell, I'm not in a position to give loads of advice, but most importantly, which I would like to tell all the aspiring authors, is that because people knew my work, that was one of the biggest reasons, the number of people who read my book or who bought my book. I think that was the primary reason they bought it, because they already knew what sort of a writer I was, what sort of a writing I did.
Because I didn't know you from
there were a number
Adam.
of
Yeah, I didn't know you from Adam. I picked up your book because I'd read your short stories. I picked up Anita's book because Anita, you'd participated in that short story thing. You'd put up a story, right, on iTunes.
Yeah.
So I pre-ordered both your books. Yeah. So I pre-ordered both your books because I knew that these are women who are talented. So I think we can conclude by saying that yes, some visibility is required, but then it depends from writer to writer. What is your comfort level? How comfortable you are? If you want more visibility, you're comfortable being out there, you can possibly be on Facebook. If you prefer a certain amount of anonymity, then you can possibly go to Insta or Twitter, because you have a character limit and you really don't need to, put up lengthy posts and stuff. So
I would like to add a couple of things to this. That nowadays, even when these book pitch fests are happening, book pitching events are happening, various portals are doing it. So even those portals, like the literary agents who are associated with those portals, even they, when your pitch is selected, even they have a question wherein they ask you, what is your marketing strategy? How are you going to market this book? So this is something which I've this is something which I've realized lately. You might not be a marketer, but still they expect you to go all out there, because if you are ready to go all out there, then only they would be willing to back you up. If you have a certain credibility, if you have certain number of people who know you as a writer, who know your writing skills, you have a certain, people know you, what you represent, then I think they are also, more willing to back you. So I think this is something which cannot be, this is becoming more, as we are going on, it's becoming more and more inevitable.
An inherent part of the literary platforms. I would add to what you've just said, Meha, and go as far as to say that I was asked upfront, okay, if I were to bring out a book, I was asked upfront, how many copies do you think you can sell on your own metal? I mean, how many copies are your relatives going to buy? Are your friends going to buy? Buyback again. How many copies would you buy back to give away? In different kinds of literary platforms, host competitions and contests and stuff like that. Other than that, what is going to be a marketing strategy? So if your book is going to hit an 18+ audience, that's a huge range, right? So what's going to be your personal marketing strategy? Leave alone the publisher. The publisher is already thinking of what they want to do. So this has become, I think, the author's role is no longer limited to just writing. We are expected to know everything. It's like become like we end up writing because we have a degree or we have some knowledge. We get it out, and then we are expected to get these marketing ka degree, advertising ka degree, PR ka degree, financial management, very important. So on that note, tell me, how expensive is it bringing out a book in the Indian market? If we talk, how expensive is it to bring out a book? I mean, did you guys face any of that expenditure? Meha, starting with
like I told you that this process was fairly smooth for me. So, but I believe that when you go through a proper channel, like if you contact a literary agent, so obviously he'll charge certain amount of money, because he has to market your book. He has to present it.
They charge an upfront amount, so they tell you that they will not take any part out of your royalty. Unlike international agents who tell you that okay, whatever royalty payments come in, we'll take a certain percentage out of it. Indian agents are charging upfront.
Yeah, they are doing that. So, so that amount is already there. Other than that, I don't know what is the clause between when you actually sign a contract with the publisher. I don't know how much amount he takes up and how much you get, because I've not gone through that, those publishers, or I've not gone through a literary agent, so I'm not in a position to answer that. But yes, I have seen, because I'm there, I've been writing for the last 4 or 5 years, but so I have seen that there are various publishers who have, grown up. I mean, they are, or left, right, and center. You will find these publishers who will just randomly say that if you have a book, you give us 50,000 or 60,000. They'll quote an exorbitant amount. They'll quote an exorbitant amount of money, and then there'll be no editing. There'll be no aesthetic sense when they're bringing out your book. So I'm very wary of these kind of publishing houses. So you need to be aware of what you are getting into, what sort of a publisher you are getting. You need
and you have to be involved every step of the way, I guess.
Right? There are some writers I know who have signed a contract and the book has come and they have not actually gone into researching as to what all books that particular publishing house has come up before. There are errors on the cover page. There are errors. There are errors in the blur.
That is so sad.
Grammatical errors, which is very jarring to see. So they've not done any homework and they've actually paid upfront and they've done that. So I think it varies from person to person, but it absolutely depends on you. How do you like your book to be? What you
Anita,
represent.
on that note, I have one final question from you, for you. Because you have 3 books out now, and I think you possibly, since it took 3 years for GIM to come out, I'm quite sure you've got 1 or 2 manuscripts ready to send out already. It should be coming out pretty soon. So Anita, as a novelist, as an author, published author, do authors make money? That is the determining question. Everybody's asking.
I guess all the well-known authors do make pots of money. I mean, we are just in the lowest rung of the ladder, and we
so basically you're like minnows who are swimming out to the sea to meet the big back sharks and stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, but is this a profitable thing? Or writing, is it profitable, or you do it just for the love of writing?
Now, if you think of profit and you indulge in a passion, I'm sure the fun in it goes away. So I'd rather, be happy doing what I do and think about the green bucks. If it comes, it's an addition. It is pretty good. But then right now, I think you should focus on the book first, let it come out, and then wait for the things to flow.
And do you think that after getting your first book out, after being published for the first time in a traditional publishing house, right, not self-publishing,
do
you think it becomes easier for you to kind of sell your, follow-up manuscript, be it any novel or a book?
Yes,
easier?
That's a wonderful thing. In fact, what Meha was saying. I mean, it's better to steer clear. I mean, it is each one to their own. But personally, I have believed in, staying away from, packages that are offered. And that doesn't interest me in the least, because my work, I believe in it. And, I feel it has a certain quality. So the right person who is interested in the work, who likes the work, will come to you. It'll take, like I said, be patient. It'll come to you. Somebody will come and pick it up. It'll come, So the rest will also come. The income or the money or the royalty, whatever, it will come. It will take time. But
it takes time to basically climb the. So it's like it's basically like a baby learning to walk. You learn to stand up, then you learn to
start from scratch, basically.
Start from scratch. Yeah. Okay. On that note, ladies, can you just tell me? Suppose for people who are just starting out, first-time writer, like you said, Anita, you faced a lot of challenges because you were doing it all alone. You were solo, right? Now, there could be others who don't have any external help. They don't have anybody to proofread or edit their work. What can they do? Where can they go? Not everybody has a great grasp on language and grammar. So what can these people do? Where can they go to edit their work?
I mean, there are free platforms like Grammarly. There are a lot of free platforms that help you, edit and look at the grammar and stuff. You can, use those platforms and, work on your language. But basically, if you need to have a proper structure, you need to have the content in you, before you venture out into something.
Right.
Like if you don't have you have the ingredients in your kitchen, but you don't know how to, mix it up and cook up a decent meal. So it's like that. You need to be sure that you have it in you to actually work on something, then avail of the platforms and use it to, add finesse and polish to your work and, keep it ready. So,
okay.
And I would say that, don't ever be disappointed. Don't think, oh, this is not happening. Oh, I'm getting stuck. Just give yourself some time. Don't be hard on yourself. Everything will work out.
I have an interesting question here for the both of you now. It says that a lot of people believe this. A short story will just write itself. A novel needs to be written, right? Would you agree to that, Meha? Short story will just write itself, because you don't have to really plot out a flash fiction. You can go into writing it with just an idea, and it kind of formulates. You can firm it as you write. With a novel, you need to plot it before you actually start writing it. So is that true, or is it something that is just a myth, you know?
I would say that no, I don't believe that a short story can write itself, because be it a short story format or a format of a novel, the basic ingredients are the same, that there is a plot, there is a conflict, and then at the end of it, the conflict is resolved or culminated in any sort of a way. So the basic outline is the same, be it a novel or be it a short story. Only
So
thing is that
essential.
plotting is essential, but again, it doesn't work the same way for everyone. There are people who don't plot. Even I know novelists who write as they go. They don't plan. Even thriller writers, there are, I mean, if you know Lisa Jewell, I mean, I follow her on Instagram, so they actually even talk about their writing, their work in progress. There are many writers there, so you learn a lot from them. So these writers, there are many of them who write as they go, so it doesn't work the same way for everyone. But again, I think that there are certain, like again, as we were talking, pros and cons of writing a novel versus writing a short story. So since short story has lesser number of words, so you can actually finish writing it sooner. But for a novel, you need to be really resilient. You need to be pretty sure about what you are wanting to write, and if that particular idea has the potential of turning into a novel. If your idea doesn't have the potential of being turned into a novel, then you probably you lose steam in between. After a few chapters, you lose steam, you will get stuck, and you will end up doubting yourself. So that is why I think taking the plunge to writing a novel is more difficult, and that is why first-time writers are more comfortable and they're plunging into writing short story anthologies more, because that's the first step, I would like to believe. But again, having said that, we have many famous authors who are known for short story collections, who write short stories only. You talk about, I mean, Alice Munro and Catherine Mansfield. They've been such great writers who are known for their short stories. So it actually depends on the person. It depends on you. You should be, you should feel strongly about your plot, be it a short story or a novel. But since novel requires it requires more of your time, and so that is why more focused. So I think that is why we talk about the importance of planning and plotting when it comes to novel, as compared to short stories. Though while before writing a short story also, if we have a prompt or whatever, you need to think about it. You will need to, at times we even write pointers before writing a short story. And at times, as is the case, I'm sure Anita can back me up on that, as is the case with the novel, same is the case with the short story. At times, you jot down various pointers, but when you are writing, it turns out to be something else.
Right.
End up writing something else.
Right.
And you may like or may not like it. It may be even better than what you had expected, or it may be, not as you had expected. So I think these basic things remain the same. Only thing is that you have to be more, resilient. You have to be disciplined when you're writing a novel.
So Anita, on that note, tell me just something. I think we're already over the time limit. We'll quickly wrap up with this last question. Tell me something.
But we had fun, right, Neha?
Yeah.
and we have to thank you for it, Sonal.
Yes.
Yeah, will you tell everybody that I'm not as intimidating as people make me out to be?
Yes, she is not intimidating. She's very sweet.
Thank you so much.
She's fun. I don't know why people are talking about her, that she's intimidating. She's scary.
She just wants some attention. Let's give her some attention. Sonal, you are good.
My. Thank you so much. I have one last question before we say goodbye. This is for you, Anita. It is said in plotting a particular novel, right? Any novel, there are so many characters in it. There are so many situations in it. There are so many genres and plot lines, right? Did you kind of employ any tools? Did you make a flow chart? Did you jot down different, kind of chapters on different sheets of paper, the points, or did you make a mood board? Did you have to do any of that at all?
It's all here.
Right.
It all worked.
So it's like what you guys said, jisko jo jis tarike se jame, they can just kind of work on it.
And what I needed to trash, some things were superfluous. I just trashed them, and then while other, there was a part, the initial, I think around 2,000 words of how Girl in a Million began. That was a little bit of heavy reading. It was philosophical, a lot of philosophy. So I think that a few readers who read it and they said, it's a bit too much. We cannot go to the story. It's putting us off. But and so I had to take that entire content and rewrite just a little bit of it. So
as a writer, you need to be very heartless with the baby that you create. Basically,
we have to be heartless and we have to be practical about it. I mean, we have to know what the reader should like. I mean, just because I write something, it need not be necessary that the reader should like it. I mean, not always the case. I can always stick it out saying, no, this is how it is.
So when we come to an anthology or a novel, whatever, tell me, ladies, how important is the reader to you when you're writing? Do you write with your target audience in mind, or do you write from your heart and then hope that this can fit into a certain target audience? Because that's a debate, that's an ongoing debate. When you go to a literary agent or a publisher, the first thing they ask you is target audience. But when you write, you don't think of a target audience. You just think of getting that story out
of your head.
Do you think you should keep a first-time writer should keep the audience, the reader in mind when they're writing their first novel or short story book?
I think you should be done. I mean, you should complete your writing first and then think of all these things. These are all kind of the trivial things that come towards the end. The end list. You tick off all your checklist. You tick off all your checkpoints and then come to the end and then think, should this be done? Should that be done? So that's
okay. All right. So anyway, any last words? You have any last words of advice, Anita, for newbie writers out there?
Be patient. I would only say be patient, be happy in what you do, what you're all writing. I mean, it's not a small thing. It's a huge thing. Writing is not an easy thing to do, and don't worry about simplistic language or the words that you use. All that is it comes in the process. You just have to stick on to it. Something. I mean, if you have a dream, it will work on. It will all pan out.
Thank you so much, ladies, for coming onto the show.
Thank you.
As far as the audience is concerned, I'm going to leave you with these two wonderful books. This is Meha Sharma's Rainbow Housing Society. This is Anita's Girl in a Million. And it is a book in a million. So I hope you guys purchase these books. Please do. Please don't borrow these from your friends. Go buy these books. Let the sales go on. So on that note, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. It's been a pleasure to be hosting you. And I hope we can reconnect at some future date and, discuss some of the finer points of writing. Maybe you can take a master class on one of my shows. So I would look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sonal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonal, so much. It was a pleasure. And it was a pleasure to meet both of you.
Yes, it was.
It goes without saying.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.